What's the Doctor without his companions? So I am planning to, in the not so distant future, revisit my ranking of modern era Doctor Who companions. But before I do that, I kind of wanted to talk about how the companion Doctor dynamic has changed. Mostly when I talk about this, I'm talking about classic era versus modern era. Now, I've alluded to some of this before when I talked about some of the major differences between classic and modern, and I sort of went down a number of things. And I did bring up the companion-doctor relationship, but I really kind of want to drill into that a little bit more specifically at this point. Because it's not just the nature of the relationships between the Doctor and the companions. The companions themselves function differently as characters than they used to. The companion originally in Doctor Who was basically just what the name implied. Actually, they weren't even called companions for a long time. They were usually referred to as assistants, if they were referred to, by any kind of title at all. So their role was to be there on the adventure, to be someone for the Doctor to talk to be an extra helping hand, to ask the questions that maybe gets the Doctor thinking about things from the angle he needs to move things forward. Varies from companion to companion, but their time was almost always really just limited to while they were on the TARDIS. Classic era companions, we really didn't know much at all about their home life, their family history, what things are like for them back home. It was just something the original show didn't deal much in. New Who deals with it a lot. And that's not a bad thing. Initially it was one of the things that sort of distinguished it from Classic Era was it drilled much more into the companions as characters. That's not to say that they weren't fully formed characters in Classic Era, but they didn't have the same level of backstory. We got like a couple of highlight points. Like we know Ace hates her mother. We know Jamie, being a Highlander, he's very gung-ho and ready for a fight. You've got Adric with his keen mathematics skills. You've got a couple of traits, but then we're just seeing them basically on the job. And, seeing how they, gathering what we can from them based on how they react to the Doctor and the situations they're put in. We get much more backstory these days, and sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. I've gone on record as saying I'm not a huge fan of the domestics, of how much of the home life we see, of the various companions at this point. And honestly, I think that's part of the reason I liked Bill as much as I did. Because Bill didn't have a ton of ties to Earth, to this era. I mean, we kept coming back to it, annoyingly, but she didn't have to keep checking in with family and recurring friend characters and a significant other. She felt much more like a classic era companion in that she was just traveling with the Doctor on various adventures. But aside from her, most of them we get quite a bit of family dynamics, and Rose was a little bit mixed for me in that department. I found Jackie to be kind of irritating. I did like Mickey, though, as a character, especially in the way he developed. With Martha, her family was not always there, but when they were there, they were pretty heavy focus, which wasn't a bad way to handle it. Donna, love her family. You see her mother, you get a lot of why Donna is the way she is, and then Wilf, oh my god, I love Bernard Cribbins. Bernard Cribbins, I guess is the way it would be correctly pronounced for my British subscribers. But him as Wilf he's astounding and he's amazing. I love him, both his relationship with Donna and as a character. And then we get into the Moffat era, and I like Amy. And not only that, I like Amy and Rory's relationships. And I do like that we didn't get a ton of additional family back. I think that was one of the things that bugged me about, say, Rose, is we got all this extra family baggage, or at least it felt like we did, having to keep checking in with her mother and her boyfriend and her alternate universe dad. Whereas with Amy, it was really just Rory, and we got to see that relationship a lot. And I think that worked. I don't know why we touched base with Clara's family the couple times that we did. Like, I legitimately don't know why that was done. And God, the other, when she was babysitting or nanny or whatever she was to those kids, God. I actually like Danny Pink better than a lot of people do, but it's not handled as well as, say, Rory and Amy were. And then, as I said, Bill, that's one of the things I like about her. You look back at classic era, though, the whole idea of the Doctor having to come back and pick up the companion, like the companion just living in their own place on Earth and the Doctor coming to get them to go on an adventure, that was never really the case in Classic Who. In Classic Who, a companion traveled with the Doctor pretty much continuously, either because the TARDIS is really obnoxious about going where the Doctor wants it to go and it takes him forever to take them back home, or they travel until they choose to stop. There are exceptions, of course, especially when you're talking about the third Doctor's era, where he was earthbound for a decent chunk of that. But by and large, that was how it worked. I think really, though, the biggest way in which things have shifted is how significant the Doctor is in the lives of these companions. Now, that's not to say that the Doctor was not significant to the lives of companions in Classic Era. More that it's just something that the show never really dealt with. Most of the companions chose when they were going to stop traveling with the Doctor. They, in some way, communicated to him, okay, I'm done, I've had enough, and he drops them off, and that's it. Again, couple of exceptions. In the case of his granddaughter Susan, he made the choice for her because he could see that she was kind of torn up by it. Every now and then you had a character who left involuntarily, possibly by death, with folks like Adric, or it didn't even have to be that. Sarah Jane Smith didn't choose when she left because the Doctor got called to Gallifrey and she couldn't go with him there. So that was it for her. It wasn't the time that she chose to leave. And so you've got a few things like that. But by and large, characters say, okay, Doctor, I'm done now. And he drops them off, and often with a melancholy to him. But, he drops them off. He has his little moment about that, and he moves along. And the presumption, at least that I get the sense of, was that the companions kind of did the same. It's like going on a whirlwind, European travelogue with somebody, and once you're done, you go, well, thanks for that, and you go home and you live your life, and you always remember it was, it may have been a really pivotal point in your life, but you move on and you do other things. How crucial the Doctor becomes to the lives of companions, it seems to have been ramped up quite a bit in modern era, to the point that we've only really had one companion choose to leave the TARDIS. That was Martha. Pretty much everybody else has been forced out by circumstance. Rose got stuck in the alternate dimension. Donna had to get her mind wiped. Amy and Rory died, kind of, sort of, eventually of old age, but that wasn't their choice for timing for when to leave. Clara died, and then she didn't, but whatever. And then Bill died, basically. And Nardole got left behind. So they've made the connection between the Doctor and the companion so strong that the writers seem to have become unwilling to believe that someone would ever choose to not continue to travel with the Doctor forever. So they have to force circumstances to allow for the companion to leave, or to force the companion to leave, more accurately. And I'm not saying that any or even all of the ways in which the companions have been removed in Modern Era is bad. But I do think it's an upshot of something that happens when, and I might do a future video on this, because it impacts more than just Doctor Who. But I think it's an upshot of something that happens when you have fans of something writing it. Because when you have writers who grew up watching Doctor Who, and like themselves as kids wanted to travel with the Doctor, they can't imagine why anyone would want to stop. Therefore, they don't really know how to write someone wanting to stop. So instead, they write them being forced to stop. And that, again, does really jack up the intensity of the connection that companions have, and kind of making it the most important thing they will ever do in their own lives. And I don't mean like on a galactic scale, because it probably is, but, you know, these people theoretically could still do things that for themselves matter more than traveling with the Doctor. And Modern Era Doctor Who has even kind of gone back and retroactively done that to some of the past companions. We got that a bit with Sarah Jane Smith, because she came back and she was kind of ticked at him for leaving her, and she says how there was basically no one else, and she never found that same kind of excitement in her life again. Now with Sarah Jane, I do think that if you were going to do that with the past companion, that one makes a lot of sense, because she, like I said, didn't get to choose to leave. But then, if you watch the Sarah Jane Adventures, they did it with Joe Grant, too. And if there's a companion that you shouldn't pull that, I was always looking for you, I was always hoping to travel with you again angle, it's Joe Grant. Because she left to get married. She made a choice in her life for somebody else. And the way that the Sarah Jane Adventures has her interact with Matt Smith's Doctor kind of undermines that choice and shades it as, if not a mistake, at the very least, as more conflicted than I think it was originally intended to be. So it's something that I haven't, brought up when I've talked about things that Doctor Who needs to stop doing and whatnot, because this is something that is a little bit more nebulous than things like the companion template. The usually young female from modern day England, which I'm so sick of. I mean, that I can nail down and make punchy and make as part of a list. But the shift in dynamic with the companions and making the Doctor so central to their lives and making them so central to his. Because the Doctor has always appreciated his companions, but they've really made them into, like, the Doctor is incomplete without them. To the point that certain writers feel they are justified in doing things like what went on in Hellbent. So the strength of that relationship has just gone up severely, and in a way that I feel is starting to hamper the show a little bit. But unfortunately, it's also something that I don't know if there's a way to roll it back. Well, I'll revise that. You could probably have companions who don't feel like the Doctor is the only thing they have going on in their lives, or will, never do anything to rival their time with him. They could write companions like that. I think it would be really hard to ever roll back the Doctor's new level of dependency on the... I mean, naked dependency. I think, naked blatant. Wish I'd chosen a different word other than naked. Now I'm just going to say naked again because I don't know. It's weird that I'm saying naked. In any case, it's now really blatant. And it was in the classic era, but it was much more of an undercurrent that he needs the companions. Now it's really front and center. I think it's going to be really hard to roll back that end of it, the Doctor's need for them, because I'm not sure how you do that without, in a way, undermining whoever the most recent companion is, because it's like, oh, well, he obviously doesn't care about them the way that the Doctor previously cared about someone like Bill or Clara or Rose or Donna or what have you. So that, unfortunately, is a move we might be still. Well, I mean, I say unfortunately because I think this is a shift that, like I said, I feel is hamstringing the narrative a bit, because since it's difficult to dial back the Doctor's dependency on companions, and at least so far, showrunners have been unwilling to dial back the companion's dependency on the Doctor from what they've built it up to over the last 10 series, then it unfortunately becomes repetitive. The first couple of tragic departures for New Era Doctor Who were in fact that. Rose in Doomsday, that was tragic. Donna in Journey's End, that was tragic. I know it didn't hit me quite as hard, but I know a lot of people got really choked up at Angels in Manhattan with Amy and Rory, but it's become just another thing that happens. The companion travels until something tragic happens. And I feel like we need to show a companion who is, functional enough as an independent entity to know when they're good and when they're done. And we need the Doctor to be able to process a breakup. Not a tragedy, not a loss, just effectively a breakup. And I think that would be something that I'd like to see happen with the next companions, except we've got 3 companions, so how much you want to bet one of them leaves voluntarily, one of them dies? I don't know what'll happen to the third. We'll forget about the third, because 3 too many. It may not be. I don't know. We'll see. So that's kind of my not really building to a specific point ramble about the ways in which the Doctor-companion relationship have changed over time, and sort of singling out some of the specifics on that, because it's something that, like I said, I've alluded to before and I really wanted to drill in on. So that's it for this one. What do you think about the way that the Doctor-companion relationship is handled in modern era? Do you prefer how it was done in classic? Do you like the way modern does it? Do you want to see it shaken up or done differently from the way it's been done the last, as I said, 10 series or so? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's all the stuff to do. You support me on Patreon, follow me on Twitter, I got a podcast, blah, 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 blah. Links for all that stuff is down in the description. So until next time, this council is adjourned.